Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have Bitcoin surging to 71K as $240 million were liquidated from the market. The Catholic Church mascot, Luce, runs to $50 million market cap before a pullback to 28.7 million. Outrageous activity in the meme coin markets. And finally, Infinex announces completion of a $67.7 million patron sale with participation from Peter Thiel's founders fund. We'll get into all of that in just a little bit. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, and an awesome conversation with Han, the founder of Shape, and the brilliant gallerist Mimi, who is the founder of the Nguyen Wahed Contemporary Art Gallery and working with some outstanding artists. So looking forward to that discussion. Today, we've got Legendary and Han in the co-host seats. We're ready to get into it. But just before we do, just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice, because the market is exceptionally risky and we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Tuesday, the 29th of October. How are you doing?
GM, doing pretty well. Quite excited for the show today. Quite excited for the headlines. I'm surprised that you made Luce, the meme coin, a headline. And honestly, when I was trading that yesterday, I didn't even notice that BTC went above 70K, and I found that quite funny because it tells a lot about where my attention is at the moment.
I think a lot of people are either have their attention diverted elsewhere, I think, at the moment, whether you're deep in working on a particular aspect or whether you're just completely allocated to meme coins in some particular way. I think a lot of people are not paying as much attention, or every time we've gone past the 70K mark before, I think there's been more noise on the timeline. Maybe that's coming through this morning, though, I think. So that's something I've noticed in the last few hours. Han, how are you doing? Welcome back with us again. Regular Tuesday show. How are you doing? How are things your side with Shape?
GM. Things are in good shape and really excited for the show today.
Excellent. Can't wait to discuss with Mimi the stuff that she's been going on. Mimi's actually an old friend, and I know her from her days in London, although she's between the two places now. I got into space because of art specifically. So doing the IRL art stuff in London is always fun for me. So I'm going to enjoy this conversation, I think. So let's get into it. We're going to have to get through the headlines and the price action a bit speedier today. But just before we do that, we're delighted to shout out a sponsor for today's show, Gondi. Gondi is the premier NFT lending platform. Just in the last few days on Gondi, multiple squiggle loans were originated at $4,000 USDC at around 15% APR, due at the end of December in 2 months. So if you're in the business of NFTs, check out Gondi to earn some interest as a lender on your ETH or USDC, or as a borrower, so you can unlock liquidity from your Grail assets. So let's get into it, starting with the price action. We have, just remember, we're showing this on screen for the people who are watching on X video and YouTube live as well. We've got Bitcoin up almost 4% to 71.1K. Timeline is delighted with that, I'm sure. ETH up around 4% also to 2.6K, and Solana up just 2% to $180. On the meme side of things, we've got Doge up almost 13% to around 16 cents. We've got Pepe up 7%, WIF up almost 10%, Popcat up 14%. A lot of green. Mogs up 14% as well. Bohm's up 5%. So a lot of green on the meme coin side too. Getting into the headlines themselves, we have Bitcoin surging to past 71K, is $240 million liquidated from the market. Catholic Church mascot Luce, how are we going to pronounce that? Luce runs to $50 million market cap before pullback to 28.7 million. And finally, Infinex announcing completion of 67.7 million patron sale with participation from Peter Thiel's founders fund. Those are the headlines, which we will discuss more in detail in a moment. Some notable sales from around the space: CryptoPunk Big Shade selling for 45 ETH, Bored Ape Bored Dagger selling for 18.5 ETH, and another edition of Beeple Bull Run selling for 10.5 ETH. There were a bunch of Beeple sales in the last 24 hours, actually. I think 4 or 5 between the 6 to 10 ETH region. So that's interesting to note. Legendary. On the NFT side, what are we seeing?
Let's check in with the majors in terms of the NFTs. Bored Apes up 1% at the 11.65 ETH floor over the last 24 hours. Pudgy's down another 2%, 8.9 ETH floor for them. So they did fall a bit under the 9 ETH floor. Azuki is basically unchanged from yesterday, still holding at a 4.8 ETH floor. Winner of the day, definitely out of the big ones, goes to Milady's. Milady's up another 10%, 9.8% to be precise, over the last 24 hours, sitting at a 4.7 ETH floor, coming very close to flipping Azuki's again, just 0.1 ETH difference between the two of them. Another collection I have to point out, Herd Hapas, is rumored to be the collection by the artist who has done the mascot for the Catholic Church. The way to pronounce it, by the way, is Luce. It's the Italian word for light that they went for, which kind of makes sense. So this artist is rumored to be the creator of that. Hence, the collection I'm sharing on screen, the Herd Hapas, did run from 0.025 ETH, peaked at 0.2 ETH yesterday, so 10x, corrected down a bit, but still up 400% over the last 24 hours. Didn't find any good sources to see if that is actually true or not, but this is the narrative that the timeline seemed to go with yesterday.
Okay,
and
that's sorry, go on. You finished first.
And just another collection to point out, actually, Infinex patrons, because we'll cover it in the headlines. It's been fluctuating quite a lot. When I checked in before, it was actually still up over the last 24 hours, but seems to oscillate between that 1.1, 1.4 ETH price floor. Definitely a lot of movement, definitely a lot of volume in there, 240 ETH of volume that has been traded over the last 24 hours.
Okay, great shout outs from the NFT market side. One comment, Legendary, is it definitely cannot be the case that the artist who produced the mascot for the Catholics, for the Vatican, had an NFT collection ready to go on the day of that publicity. Like, there's just absolutely no chance.
It's an older collection. It's an older collection that basically resurfaced because of that. But again, I have no idea towards the veracity of that claim, but I wanted to point it out because it moved on those rumors.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that is interesting to know. We'll have to do some more research there. Glad you brought it up. Nevertheless, let's get to the Web3 Roundup to get you up to with everything else that's happened in the last 24 hours. Trump welds Liberty by plans to launch a stablecoin. This is obviously Trump's DeFi project, which wants to get into the stablecoin business. Cardano seeks to become a smart contract layer on Bitcoin. That's pretty interesting to note. The OG Bob Lax pre-sale. This was something that took place over 72 hours. And ended yesterday, raised $6 million. This is someone who is very kind of native to crypto Twitter, has been around since the beginning, managed to raise 6 million in 72 hours. Pretty outrageous. Something to do with the game. Pretty vague details, to be honest. I think people just aped in. Rex drinks to launch on the 30th of October at 10 a.m. at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That is tomorrow. So that's pretty cool from Ovi. OpenSea announces an Artblocks partnership where the Artblocks team will guide roadmap for the creators. That is a cool partnership. ApeChain users hit all-time high at 32K unique addresses. We obviously covered ApeChain a lot when it came to market last week. Seems to be the case that there's some good activity taking place there still. And this was pretty cool on the art side. Claire Silver sells AI-painted piece for $100,000. The piece was called Transplant, exhibited at We Are Unit in London. Painted by Acrylic Robots, a robot at AWS startups, and it was shown at the Digital Art Fair. It's sold to a private collector for $100,000. Pretty cool. A lot of hype around AI and crypto at the moment, especially over the last weekend and moving into this week. I think this is just a really cool, another really cool use case for AI, whether that's in art or crypto or at some kind of intersection between the two. So that is pretty cool as well. Legendary. Any bits you'd pick out from there before we hit the main headlines today?
Two bits I want to pick out. Real quick one. Actually, positively surprised by ApeChain that wallet numbers, wallet addresses is still increasing. Also see quite a few mints that seem to get some hype, at least mints that move pretty fast and have some nice action on the secondary. So there seems to be more traction than I had initially expected. And the second one that actually surprised me is to see Trump's World Liberty wanting to launch a stablecoin. I mean, we've talked a lot about stablecoins and how everyone wants to have a piece of that cake. So maybe from that perspective, it shouldn't be surprising. But yeah, it's it's interesting that there are stablecoin plans as well now.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Han, what about this AI piece? We were delighted to have Chikai on last week, who obviously spoke a lot to AI art and how his vision for AI creations moving forward and creators and how they might be able to leverage it. This is, I guess, is a slightly different example in the sense that I believe it's the AI actually helping the robot create the work. What have you noticed about the kind of AI art sector from your experience so far?
Yeah, I think AI is increasingly going to be one of the really powerful tools in the tool set that is available to artists. And then it's going to open up so many possibilities, just as, for, let's say, generative artists, that software and coding was one of the big uh, uh, tools that are available to those artists. AI is also going to be a huge tool. So it's going to allow what I'm most excited about AI art is enabling artists to do something they couldn't do before in some crazy way. And so that's what I'm really interested in.
That's pretty cool. I think that's the correct vision. That's very much in line with what Chikai was saying last week as well. I'm super excited for it, and specifically actually at the intersection with crypto, we've seen how all these agents are appearing over the last week, or the possibility to spin out your own AI agent in not too many clicks in a short amount of time. Very interested to see where we take this together and how art, AI, and crypto kind of all intersect in some interesting way. So that'll be pretty exciting to see. Let's get into the headlines today, though. We've got the main headline, which is about Bitcoin. People are pretty excited today, Legendary. In some ways, it's just a simple headline, so I don't know what more there is to say apart from Bitcoin is finally past 70K, but I'm sure you have some numbers and data and thoughts on Bitcoin breaching the 70K mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the data to see what's happening other than the spot price moving to 71K. Volume is up massively. Volume's up 94%, $78 billion. Open interest is up a bit. It's not up too much. It's up 8%, 42 bill for that. Options volume also up massively, up 97%, 3.35 bill. The only number that is actually down is the one that we put in the headline as well. Liquidations over the last 24 hours at 224 mil. Number we see here is a rolling one. This is why it is a bit smaller. And that very, very positive price action on Bitcoin kind of makes me think more about the upcoming election and how the very recent polls are pointing towards the probability of Trump winning. The one that actually surprised me most on that was the Real Clear Politics one, that I think saw Trump's winning probability at more than 90% because of how they are analyzing swing states. And I think that's a bit exaggerated, but I do see a connection between the positive sentiment in the market, between the elections coming closer and the momentum that is moving a bit in Trump's favor. All of that going together, I think we've generally seen an increase in trading activity over the last week that we also had reported on the show, also based on that CoinGlass data they just shared. And it's now very, very strongly reflecting in BTC as a major as well.
Interesting. Okay, I think we spoke a little bit the other day on probabilities of different parties winning and what we thought of that. So I think that's one conversation to be having with the election only 7 days or a week or so away now. Second conversation, maybe we haven't spoken about enough, is ETH and Solana as we kind of go into this more bullish period of time. This was shared by Andrew Kang yesterday. And I just wanted to hear your kind of personal thoughts on this, Legendary. ETH and Sol market cap is down significantly from first half of 2024, while Sol is trading near the highs. Overall, money has left the L1 ecosystem, but a lot of those that sold ETH simply rebalanced into Solana. When Sol flips ETH, I believe it will be with Sol higher from here and ETH lower. What do you think is there anything to do if you were caught in ETH all this time because you've been inactive and just been unable to make the trade? Is it too late to switch? Like, do you think that this crazy activity on Solana is something which is going to rebalance because the ETH to Sol chart has tipped so much in favor of Solana, or Solana's been rising in that chart for so long? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting question. And if you look at the timeline, maybe the first impression is to kind of think that everyone's moving to Sol. If you look at the general mindshare, I actually did run an analysis on Kaito on that yesterday. ETH still has a bit more mindshare than Solana. Obviously, it's trending down significantly. And I feel like there's two positions that couldn't be more contrary. You have traders like Moritz, on the one hand, who admitted on the timeline, look, they're late to the Sol play. They've been comfortable in ETH for far too long. They moved a good part of their of his stack over to Solana. Then you have the perpetual ETH bulls, like DC Investor, a very prominent figure in the ETH space for years, who's basically saying that ETH had this moment every cycle it was flooded, but then it did have a run, but it seems that there's like no middle ground. There's just the two extremes. There's people who are moving over to Solana and they're like willing to call it quits with ETH, and there's people who are saying nope, is still the best money layer that we're building on the internet. Absolutely not worried about that. You can FUD all along. Personally, I did move a bit of my stack to Solana, not only because I wanted to have the meme exposure, but I just didn't want to have this one bet, because what I had noticed is for quite a long time that ETH and Solana performance are not the same anymore. They used to track pretty much, but now there is a stronger divergence there. So from that perspective, I just wanted to be more active in both ecosystems. And maybe also just coming back for a real quick thought on the BTC headline. What I have noticed as an additional interesting data point, just to underline the sentiment, is if you look at Polymarket on the question, will Bitcoin, I'm sharing this on screen, reach a new all-time high in 2024? It's not the biggest bet, 740K in volume in there, just to point it out as well. But at the start of the month, market saw that at a 44% chance to happen. Obviously, now we are at an 86% chance. But the chance has moved up actually pretty fast. So even last week, when we weren't close to 70K, the market already had thought, yep, it's not a 40% chance, it's a 70% chance. So it seems that the sentiment has shifted a bit early, as we also reported on the volume increasing. It did take a bit to reflect on the BTC price.
Interesting. Excellent additional information there from Polymarket. Thanks, Legendary. Han, maybe one question here for you on whether it's ETH versus Sol, or ETH versus Bitcoin. You're obviously building out on L2s, and I've seen a lot of arguments made, which goes something like, well, yes, okay, ETH mainnet activity is down, and that type of activity is down, but a lot of activity has kind of flowed out, whether that's to, well, just to the L2s, and so there's as much activity as before, if not more. It's just kind of more distributed. How have you thought about this kind of greater competition maybe from Solana, and how you guys have been building out on Ethereum L2?
Yeah, what we're seeing in real time is in actually the price movement of these tokens is a kind of the clash between two philosophies, that the L1 should be the scaling layer, or the L1 should be the decentralized core, and then you scale via L2s. And so just from like a architectural computer science point of view, it really remains to be seen, like which system is going to be the right thing. Of course, as a person who is building an L2, I think it really is an interesting like approach to scale via L2s, and I think there's a lot of promise there. That said, I think Solana's approach to having a scalable L1 is, I think, going to fit a lot of use cases. And I think the last thing I'll say is that often the way it's discussed, it sometimes feels like, oh, it's a zero-sum kind of game that everyone is talking about. And I think both scaling approaches actually have its place.
Okay. I think that's really interesting to have the technical perspective as well as the practical perspective of actually going through it and building the L2 as we speak, because I think a lot of people have different opinions on it, but I know you're going through it as we speak. So that's super helpful. Let's keep it moving, get to the second headline. I want to get you up to speed with the other two main headlines before we hit today's interview with Mimi in just a little bit. So stay tuned for that. Legendary, we've got a few minutes here on Luce, I think is how you wanted to pronounce it in Italian. I was doing the Spanish um, pronunciation. What's the news here?
It's an absolutely hilarious story. Yesterday, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, has launched a cartoon mascot for the Holy Year 2025. Crypto Twitter almost immediately observed a bit of a semblance to Miladies to other collections, created a meme coin. That meme coin shot up from $0 to $50 million overnight. Has retraced a bit, is still trading at around $30 million. Just to share a couple more details on that, sharing this on screen from the Catholic World Report website that I never thought I will share on the modern market, but here we are. The mascots basically are by the artist Simone Legno, who is also the co-founder of a pop culture brand called Tokidoki. There's more in this lineup. Again, they are the mascot for the Jubilee year in 2025. They're also part, or the Luce itself, that's the one with the yellow raincoat, will be also the face of the Holy Seas exhibition in 2025 in Osaka in Japan. And as we just said, market loved that very much, did create the meme coin Luce yesterday. You saw that shoot up to 46 mil, outliers at 50 mil, and currently still trading at $30 million, with basically a timeline commented, this is the first meme coin that we have that is anointed, that is supported by a major world religion. So we just have to send it as high as we can.
Okay. Perfect summary. Nice little extra bits of information there. I didn't know that about the artists themselves. That's really cool. I don't know if there's much more to say on that. Obviously, the price action was pretty aggressive yesterday. It's pulled back more than 50% in the last 24 hours. I think that sufficiently gets people up to speed with where we are there. Final headline for today before we hit the interview with Mimi is the Infinex confirmation of the raise. So Infinex, the patrons NFT, it's actually, they confirmed their raise of $67.7 million. It included participation from Peter Thiel's Founders Fund and a bunch of other notable investors. There was Wintermute, Thiel's Founders Fund, Vitalik, Toli, I think, and Stanny from Aave, Toli from Solana. So they kind of united a bunch of people in order to try to, their thesis is to try to create the on-chain version of Binance. Not in the notable investors section is my name. I'm not there quite yet, but I did participate in that, full disclosure. And an interesting component is that it was done by an NFT raise. So everyone got in at the same terms. There was no, like, although there are VCs included, they didn't get better terms. And so the NFT collection itself, as Legendary's post points out on CoinGecko, because it's an NFT, it's actually the third largest NFT by market cap as things stand. So you have CryptoPunks at the top. You then have the second largest NFT collection by market cap is Bored Apes. The fourth largest collection is Pudgy Penguins. Fifth is Autoglyphs. Sixth is Azuki. And Infinex patrons now have gone in at number 3. The thing to note there is that these NFTs, which are trading around 1.2 ETH, I think, or 1.1 ETH, there will be more coming to the market. So the way that they distributed it is you paid either $1,500 for the NFT if you were happy to be locked up for a year and then get them coming, then kind of get them vested to you over a period of time, or you could pay 3,000, or you could pay 5,000, and the vesting terms kind of changed, or when you got hold of the NFTs. So there will be more NFTs coming. I don't think anyone has communicated that on the timeline. I don't think anyone necessarily knows that. So that could change depending on the demand and supply. It's something to be cautious of if you are interested in there. But definitely an interesting app to check out. A lot of big backing. That's what I would say about that. Legendary, any follow-up questions, thoughts on Infinex?
It's pretty fascinating. I mean, you made the fair point. There's more NFTs coming, but just from a market cap perspective, which has been a metric that we started to use more and more on NFTs, to see them, quote unquote, flipping Pudgy Penguins, kind of shows you how big A that is, and B, that if there's still interest in the market and you're building a product, you still can conduct a raise, a sale via NFTs, which has been believed to be dead, but if well executed, still works. So that's my key takeaway from it.
I like it. So look, that gets you up to speed with everything that's happened in the last 24 hours from our perspective. We're delighted now to be able to move on today's interesting conversation. We've got Mimi with us. Mimi is the founder of the Nguyen Wahed Contemporary Art Gallery. It's dedicated to exploring the relationships between human, natural, and digital realms. The program features artists whose practice spans multiple media and conceptual frameworks through idiosyncratic commentaries on societal changes. She's also a PhD fellow, or was a PhD fellow at Imperial College London, and was an innovation lecturer at University of Arts London. That was at least the case when I knew Mimi when she was in London. I know she's now more traveling between New York and London, so we'll dive more into that story in just a little bit. Han, I would love to pass over to you here and invite you to say a piece on Mimi.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Mimi is, such an active figure in the art space. She is connected to everything and everyone. And we recently, I recently attended one of the dinners that she hosted for the Tamagotchi gallery, Tamagotchi release. And so I'm very excited to talk to her about it.
Yeah, me too. As you said, connected to many people. I had to double check when you said it was going to be Mimi in the last few days when we were organizing. I was like, I think this is the same Mimi that I know. And yeah, so that was pretty fun. So genuinely, I'm not even fully into the art space as much as you guys, but even I know Mimi and I've met her multiple times in London. So very well connected. Great to have you with us. Mimi, welcome to the stage with us. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you great.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny because like we were speaking, I saw you last year at the exhibition that I was curating in London, and actually also Han, I met at one of the artist studios in January. So it all came back, and I think it's nice to see you guys again, even if it's online, and hopefully see you again soon in New York in a gallery physically.
Yeah, that would be great. I've seen you've set up there. We've got some questions for you on that in just a little bit too. Before we explore your latest project, Tamagotchi, which is what we want to talk about, I wanted to ask you about how you got into this space and pretty interesting background. I mentioned a couple of bits there. You are a PhD fellow at Imperial College in London, and you were an
Yeah.
innovation lecturer at the University of the Arts in London. What was your area of study and focus when you were focusing on those things, and how did it lead you into this kind of digital art space?
I think I was always studying and working in different areas or different fields. So my education is more like data science, engineering. So the PhD was in engineering. I was with ABI Watson on an emotional AI tool. But in the meantime, I was studying and teaching in the art school because also on site I was teaching. I went to the art school in Poland for my BA. So as I often say, I was often like schizophrenic. So there would be like my passion life, my uni life, and then my professional life, my paying the rent life. And when NFT came, it was such a great combination because also my professional experience was in fintech. So it kind of like brought all these things together. Like, oh my God, suddenly I can use the programming and the engineering side and the financial side. And of course, finally work with artists, which was my dream. And so, yeah, I joined an NFT platform and been with them for 2 years. And of course, yeah, the market changed a lot. And for me to grow with some of the artists was the most exciting thing. So I think by having a gallery, I'm able to go back to the artists that I've been working for the last 2 years and just keep being a part of their journey. Like, we spoke about the show of Zach Lieberman last year. I'm coming back next week with him to the art fair. Same with Tamagotchi. I think first launch was with QBB. That was his first Ethereum open edition. And then, ramping up to his solo show in London and then coming back again with his solo show in New York. So I just feel like I grow with him. It's been 3 years now. And I think that's the most rewarding thing when working with artists.
Yeah, that's really cool. You mentioned some big names there, Zach Lieberman, Quibibi. What's the way, how did you find the best way to kind of establish yourself and then establish those relationships when you started at the beginning? Because I guess it's such a new industry completely.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about kind of establishing yourself and those relationships?
I think, of course, I started like everyone else. I started collecting. I mean, of course, I started from the ICO boom, kind of trading shitcoins, possibly.
Oh, so you were in there as well.
Yes, I was there as well. I also had like lost ledgers and stuff. But then, yeah, then of course I started collecting NFTs. And whilst teaching at the University of Arts London, I started to invite a lot of people over to speak about it. And I was very lucky that the university was quite supportive in enabling me to do that. So recently I met Kenny Schachter, for example. It's like, oh my God, I remember I was at the uni meeting with students. Operator came very early on, I think 2022. So it was just kind of building up the network of people, but not just artists, but critics, curators that would come and speak about NFTs to students in the art school. And that's how I kind of got to know a lot of people. And of course, I think being introduced from other artists to other artists. And often, I mean, artists are great curators. I often just follow a few artists. For example, Yazid, I really trust him. And, you know, whoever he's resharing, whoever he's collaborating or supporting, I trust his taste. And that's kind of how the network grew up. And then, of course, we're doing different drops and releases. And I guess at the end of the day, it's about finding a group of people that you respect and you trust. And the artists that I'm able to work with right now are the people that I just want to hang out with. And it's very simple. And that's, you know, I'm not going to try to fight for someone who, you know, we're just not on the same energy level, I guess. And I'm lucky enough that I think, you know, we had loads of dinners last weekend. Hano was one of them, but later on we had like a dinner with only artists in New York. 4 of them flew over just for that dinner, and it was just very special, magical moment because for them also to meet each other finally in person. And yeah, I think we are just a bunch of people that, you know, if we want to, we can just spend weeks and days with each other and learn from each other.
That's pretty awesome. To what extent do you think, you mentioned hanging out with people, you know, you end up working with people who you just want to hang out with the most. Has it been challenging operating in a digital landscape in order to establish those relationships? How important is the IRL aspect? I'm going to speak about like your history with Verse at the moment, with or your previous history with Verse, where you actually try to establish more of a physical presence. Have you found the physical presence to be really important, or have you been able to navigate that fine?
Yeah, I think everything was quite skewed after COVID, right? Like we still were kind of like very digital, but then I guess we realized after 2 years that people crave physical meetings, physical exhibitions, and I guess it's just like trying to understand how can you parallelly serve this both worlds, because of course there's this physical thing, but it's quite expensive for everyone to fly over to one dedicated space, and it's very difficult sometimes just logistically. You know, for me to get into New York, I had to fly from London to Istanbul, and then from Istanbul to New York. It took me 24 hours to get here. And only because like they sold out all the tickets, direct ones. So it is very stressful. It takes so much time and money and energy, but I think it's worth it. I mean, all of you guys, like I met in person, and it's slightly different if we would just be chatting on DMs. But of course, I'm not saying that that's the most important thing. It's not very inclusive as well, and having also kind of understanding and awareness of the power of the online network community, which I'm not a fan of this word now because it's overused, but yeah, basically social media, we see what's happening, like what's the power of it. So trying to be mindful of this both words, I guess it's very important, and it's not just this or this.
Yeah, I completely get it. Both can be leveraged for their particular benefits, and both have their own merits. I think that's definitely fair to say.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Tamagotchi is talking about. So the idea of Tamagotchi came out last year. I don't know if you remember, I did like this show on the building in Manchester. So I found like the School of Digital Arts in Manchester had a new building, the skyscraper, that the whole building is an LED screen. And after a year speaking to them, I managed to kind of block it for a whole month. So I invited various artists to work specifically on a site-specific installation. So they were like coding building. The building had like 7 screens that was like wrapped around, and then the animations go around thing. And at one moment we realized whilst working on that is that you have the difference between working for artworks that are on the building on a skyscraper and artwork that is for iPhone consumption. And there is this relationship between big scale, small scale, and it just reminded me of Tamagotchi, so like that little egg. And of course, it kind of opened up the whole discussion about relationship, digital relationship, because I realized that whoever I was speaking on and work on this project, I was speaking on DMs. And, that's how the relationships were nurtured and built. Kind of, am I responsive to their messages? Can I keep talking to them for months and years, just purely digitally? And of course, thinking about back then when you had a Tamagotchi, you would care about this little pet, and you have to keep feeding it, otherwise it dies. Are we not doing the same with keep engaging with people on Twitter, keep DMing people? If you start liking people, your basic algorithm is killing you. You're gone. And I feel a lot of people who left the space experience that because it's very tricky to get back. And so we're kind of thinking whether we are now these little pets inside these eggs, and Tamagotchi is this whole digital egg world that surrounds us. And I was speaking to Karim Safar about it and really wanted to push this this topic. So this has been discussed since last August. So it's been 14 months that we've been working on this. And every artist was just doing a commission work specifically for this film.
That's amazing. So one of the questions I have on this, which I think is really interesting from the art perspective, is it sounds like you as the curator, gallerist, I don't know what specific role you'd give yourself in this, you yourself had a vision, and then you kind of went to the artist to explain that vision, see whether it resonated with them, see whether they agreed, disagreed, and try to collect a group of people who kind of wanted to feed towards your vision. Is that is that the accurate kind of role? Like, how exactly did you make that happen? Is that how it happened?
It's by me harassing people. No, I'm joking. It's 2 ways. One, so for example, the show that I just opened yesterday, I knew the works before, and I combined Polish paintings with gold leaf with Lander Herzog's physical object. So it doesn't make sense. And if you go to the gallery, also you're being shocked, why is this put together? But when you read about the exhibition and the context, it actually makes sense. And that's one way of me working. When I speak to a lot of artists, I understand their future plans or the works that they have in a locker, and I put together something that just makes sense together. And another way that I work sometimes is that I come up with a random idea, like Tamagotchi or Heterotopia, or I get inspired with something, and depends on my relationship with the artist. If it's very close and we actually are planning a collaboration together, I would then, discuss that with them. And if they think that it fits actually their practice, then they will continue doing that. So with QBB, I don't know if you remember, we did 2 years ago Magical Door.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was a very random surprise release because no one really knew QBB from that side, that he actually is a digital, an interactive artist for the last 20 years. So people know him from stills, from Mimizu, but there's a side of QBB that just likes to play with music, likes to play with game, likes to play with kind of this very glittering art, digital heavy one. So if you watch old works by him in 2010, you would actually see that. And for Magical Door, again, it was like a fun joke idea, kind of let's do something for Christmas that is just fun. And it turned out to be, I think we completely tripled our expectations because we didn't expect that people would be so shockingly supportive about that. And then this time I was talking to him and I was saying, let's do it again. Let's come back to your core of your practice, and let's do something fun, interactive, music based, and also generative, which is quite stressful. But yeah, this is something that is very rare from QBB, and as I said, that's why it takes 14 months or even longer to make this happen. And there is no deadline. There was never a deadline with anyone. it was kind of whenever you guys are ready, I'll do a show. So before we did a show in NFT Lisbon with like this 360 degrees immersive Tamagotchi kind of reverted situation. And yeah, this time I think we might be ready after 15 months. And so yeah, fingers crossed. And that's actually, of course, thanks to Han and his team support.
Sounds super interesting. You mentioned the generative aspect, and you immediately said that's slightly more of a stressful component. Do you want to speak to some of the challenges or the interesting aspects that made you either want to take that route, or why you thought that'd be a worthwhile challenge to tackle?
I mean, with all three bodies of work, there is something new and something different. So with QBB, as I was speaking to Han, how Magical Door became generative, it was more like a misunderstanding or a translation mistake, because I kind of threw in the idea of generative, and I don't think like, Google Translate could translate that perfectly for him. So he didn't really understand what I'm asking for. I was like, oh, can we do generative or like as a joke, like FX hash thing? When we speak to each other about generative series, he calls it FX hash style. That's kind of like in his language. That means FX hash style thing. And I think it was a joke. So he delivered me the work for the exhibition in London. And then he was like, okay, now I do the FX hash style thing. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah. Is that not what you asked for? I was like, no, I just felt like it was going to be an open edition. So, and then it turned out to be a generative series. And the same here, like for him, who works in Flash, to change to generative it's completely different. It's a different way to work. It's not even the same way he programs, and that's the most challenging thing. And I hope that we actually will be able to make it happen. And then, of course, the fun thing and special thing is that it's interactive and purely music based and responsive to the music. So that's kind of like a really fun part. With Lokme and Karim Safa, they created an algorithm that follows Game of Life algorithm. So it's kind of like you own the whole game, and then you can walk around the game, and you can export every snapshot from that part. So it's something that I've never seen done by these guys, and I'm so excited because like the experience of the collector is completely different than having like a GIF. So it's and then it's very deep on levels as well. There's a lot of inspirations with the old games, the palettes and the colors, and the whole kind of way of scoring inside the game. It's kind of following the Game of Life algorithm as well. So that's something that I hope people that understand the old games will get this nostalgic feeling towards. And then another thing for me that I was quite excited was OMG I Draw It, because a lot of people know him from Tezarts. And that's kind of like the biggest series that, he was famous for. And also that's how I met him, because, he was a Tezarts person. But he actually is outside of this big PFP project. Is a great, I call it digital painter. And, his works are so intricate and detailed. And, it takes, I don't know, 20 hours at least to finish one work. And it's just so special. And he took this theme Tamagotchi very seriously. And he's been working on 12 unique works. And the way I showed them in the gallery as well is like a different way that I never actually exhibited anything in that way. We use light boxes. And yeah, I think the experience of seeing a digital piece, not on a TV, of someone who you actually, you think that he's just a PFP person, but he's actually a great artist and then creatives, changes the context and the narratives. And that was my aim, actually, to showcase him from a different angle, from a different perspective, and then explain to people that, look, he is a fantastic artist. It's just, it was just buried under the PFP drama.
That's very, very interesting. You mentioned having a vision for how to display and showcase these artists. Obviously, there's a digital component, but now you do have the physical location. I'm just sharing it on screen, the website for the Nguyen Wahed Contemporary Art Gallery. This is based in New York. So how do you decide, what's the thinking behind how you kind of present these works across digital and your physical locations?
Fun thing is that I still don't have screens, which I'm very proud of, and
You don't have screens?
No.
Oh.
I don't need to yet. I think being truthful to the medium is of course important. So of course, if we work with digital art, I'm also trying not to do prints yet because I'm not a big fan of that. You know, printing a JPEG and putting that artificial in a frame, it just feels a bit often. But of course, there will be situations where I have to do it. But really thinking about each of the work individually. So with Adivagen Next, the first solo show, the work was political and it oscillated about the protocol that was responsive to the elections results. So depending on whether Kamala wins or Trump wins, the NFT would be unlocked. And so how did we show it? We basically turned it into a political campaign. So we wild posted the gallery into this big poster. So it was more about the concept rather than, is it a poster? Is it a print? Is it a plotter? Is it a screen? It's more like, this is a campaign about America, about flags, and why don't we just get inspired with the street art and then campaigning and the whole culture of wild posting and then moving that to the gallery. We have right now physical work, so paintings, that's easier, and some fabrics hanging as an installation. So then I treat the space more like an installation space. And then of course, Lander Species is a physical object, so it was quite easier. But for Tamagotchi, I was thinking more about, okay, so we need something that is interactive and touch-based for QBB and Lokmi and Karim Safa. So I basically showed the work on iPhones, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. My Magical Doll was shown on the iPhone as well, because it's mainly at its core an interactive piece. You're supposed to play with it with your finger. And the easiest one for you, the most natural way, is on an iPhone. So we're kind of showing that in the context that this is how we consume digital art, and just be truthful with that. And I think people love that. Like when first Magical Door came up on the iPhone, that was like the most kind of played item in the gallery, and people just love that. But also, you know, it's about music as well, things that it plays. And with OMG, I drew it. The light box as well, a godsend, because I've never done that before, but of course that's how a lot of traditional galleries are showcasing digital art, if they have. And I got inspired by that, and I think I started first, actually how I tested that is I bought 2 for my house, for myself, and I just saw like, can I live with it? Like, can I actually have it in the house? And it was so fun to have it, to just have it in the background because it's on a TV. And I'm like, I'm really enjoying that. And I don't know, Han, you saw the light boxes. What was your thinking?
Yeah, I actually, so the way that you described like the art being shown in the actual context of the specific piece, I think that's really cool. So both the Lokmi and Kubibi, because they're so interactive, a lot of people will experience it on their phones, right? Because most people don't. I mean, many people don't have like a huge screen that's interactive, touchscreen, and so having it like that, I think was really great. And then, yeah, the Lightbox was, I think, really great for OMG's work because it's an illustration, and then with its very vibrant colors, I think it's like really stood out as Lightboxes. So I really enjoyed all the ways that it was presented.
I think it's a really interesting question how to present this stuff. So that's really insightful. Han, wanted to ask you here. We've only got a few minutes left, and then want to come back to Mimi to kind of give a bit of a rundown on what the details are and maybe a few more details on the gallery. But from your perspective, with this coming to shape, what are you interested in? What are you excited about here?
I mean, first of all, the curation and collaboration that Mimi has done with all three artists is quite amazing. Both the Kubibi piece and the Lokmi piece, they are they are actually like procedurally generated. So I mean, you would say that that the Kabibi piece is generative, and then the Lokmi is like procedurally generated, and both being interactive is really cool. The music, for example, that's associated with Kabibi's magical doors happening again on Shape. I think that's pretty legendary. And then being able to move around in like a game-inspired like map. When I saw it, I you don't classically think of these things as when you say something is art, like you don't classically associate it with like, oh, here's a game generated like game map, but it is. And these are the kind of works that kind of like really expand your expectations of what art can be, and especially in a digital context. I mean, this stuff really excites me. And then the OMG work, this kind of it really inspires, I think, like a certain generation of people who love the kinds of the illustrative works like the ones that OMG has drawn, and especially in that Lightbox context, in that huge and like really bright way of experiencing it, I thought was great. So all three works, intensely excited for them.
Amazing. Sounds very, very interesting. Mimi, just want to come back to you now. I've just got a couple minutes left. Final thoughts, anything you'd like to add about the pieces? What are the final details that we should know? Any final thoughts?
I mean, so the release is planned for the week of 11th of November. So we're gearing towards that. We have, I guess, less than 10 days actually. And this is supposed to be a fun release because that's why, we want to bring back this energy, exactly as Han said, from Magical Door, when we were just, it was like an open edition, but each piece unique, and and that's why I was thinking about Shape, because we wanted kind of like a bigger volume, and the same with Kirimsaf and Lokmi. They's like, why not do an open edition? I mean, I don't know, like we just got so obsessed with let's just sell 10, let's just like milk the 10 collectors left in the space, and like rank the price up or like close the supply. Like it just became quite toxic, the space at one moment, and now we want to like bring back like what was the energy of NFT space and NFT collecting in 2021, 2022. It was just fun, and people just were buying these unique pieces on volume, and literally enjoying and having fun with collecting as well. So I think both the Lokmi and Karim Safa and the QBB, they are the projects that are just, I think, trying to revive this energy. OMG, I do it as I say, something different than the Tezards, and they also still, quite childish, but they make me smile, and I think it's a fun release as well. And at the end of the day, it's talking about us, and I think that's just kind of like, on one side, okay, it's not like ha fun, but it's also saying, wow, we are all just in a Tamagotchi, and I think that there is this kind of reverted context, and people will take that notion from it.
I love it. There's so many of the artists who've been with us who've spoken about trying to bring back some of that energy. So I think that message will resonate with a lot of people, because a lot of people are in search for that same energy and are trying to bring it back. And lots of people are doing that with Han on Shape. So Mimi, thanks so much for joining us. It's been awesome to learn about Tamagotchi and everything that you've been up to. Thanks, Han and Shape, as always, for facilitating this conversation. Thanks to our sponsor today, Gondi, for seeing the vision for this partnership. Gondi is the premier NFT lending protocol where there are routinely millions of dollars of loans given against autoglyphs, CryptoPunks, Videnzas, and XCopies, just to name a few. So check them out if you're looking to earn as a lender or unlock liquidity as a borrower. Thanks, of course, to everyone tuning in today. Remember, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour, live on X Spaces, X Video, and YouTube. You can catch up with us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts too, if you prefer that. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.